All right, everyone. We start off today, of course, with the cucking of Judge Merchan in the Alvin Bragg persecution case, the hush money case. Forced to delay sentencing. It was going to be in another week. It was going to be on July 11th. Now they've booted it over till at least September, which means nothing's going to happen. I mean, it's probably not going to happen then either, as the lower courts try to decide whether Trump can really even be prosecuted for these things at all. Official versus unofficial act is now the litmus test set down by SCOTUS. Lower courts have to sort of grin and bear it, I suppose. Link in the description, archived of course. I find this hilarious because the entire case is nothing more than a blatant and naked political persecution of somebody who was by then already in the lead, expected to win. That's why they proceeded with this and other cases. Jack Smith's case is basically dead in the water. That one appears not to really exist at all at this point. I think they sought a gag order a few days ago. I don't think they got it. And that's number one. Then you got Fulton, number two. That one is on endless appeal. Now you've got the booting forth of sentencing in the Merchan case, in the hush money case. Donald Trump has basically won against the entire legal system at this point, which doesn't surprise me terribly much, by the way. None of these cases really had any merit whatsoever anyway. If Trump wins re-election, and based on the polling we'll analyze in the live stream today, it's looking more and more likely that that'll be the case. That case goes away too, so the fact that he's found guilty, it basically doesn't touch him. You can't lock up the sitting president of the United States. Congress would have to act and remove him from office. The likelihood that they'll try is high. The likelihood that they'll succeed is very low. They'll probably impeach him again, by the way. Trump will probably face more impeachment inquiries. He probably won't get removed from office. He'd have to do something really, really bad in order for enough Senate Republicans to decide to throw him under the bus. They'll probably try to bribe or blackmail some of them. If Romney were still in the Senate, he'd definitely be one of them. You could think of a Cornyn or something like that. I don't think the votes are going to be there. I think that the GOP will take the Senate. I think that they'll lose the House, by the way, in this coming election. The damage that you see for Joe Biden isn't fully trickling down ballot. But there's a really hostile Senate map for the Dems. It's like basically 2-to-1 having to guard in areas where you're not necessarily, you're not, it's not an echo chamber state, and so it's not just far blue. Whereas the Republicans, most of the seats they have to defend are safe. So, there's that. Merchan got cucked, basically. The Supreme Court saying Trump does have, and other presidents have, limited immunity against legal cases. It just depends on what the lower courts conceive of as an official act. Now, they'll side against Trump, I believe. But the thing is, on that appeal, you're punting it real close to the election. And Merchan would have to delay again. He can't wade in the middle of September and imprison, the official nominee of the Republican Party. And keep in mind, this is after the convention that they've scheduled this for. And it's obvious that Trump will indeed win. Unless he croaks or he has a stroke live on stage, he's the Republican nominee. Politically speaking, sentencing him at all would have been difficult even if you hadn't had the immunity decision. Let's say the Supreme Court, in bizarro world, the Supreme Court has said, no, presidents can be limitlessly persecuted, you can do whatever you want, and if you simply pass a law ex post facto that something that they did was illegal, you can go ahead and go after them for that, it's perfectly fine. Just grandfather it in, and we have no problem with that. Let's say that had happened. Would it still be meaningful? No, it probably still wouldn't stop Donald Trump anyway. It would also, again, be seen as persecutorial in nature, even if you didn't have the immunity ruling. Well, that's what's happening anyway, effectively. They're trying to jail Trump, for example, for election interference. Why? Because of something that happened before he was even in office. They're trying to jail him for taking his work home with him, even though other presidents in the contemporary sense have done the same thing. None of them have ever faced any form of legal prosecution, etc., etc., etc. The RICO case, that's so overburdensome that even liberal commentators began complaining. I think that the immunity ruling was a good thing, but it's limitedly good. It's also almost irrelevant in the Trump case. the idea that they were going to literally imprison a presidential frontrunner successfully without him getting elected anyway on the "I'm being persecuted" ticket, I think was always balderdash. And the fact is that these cases helped Trump. The moment that he was initially indicted by Alvin Bragg, his support in the primaries rose by like 5 points, or 7 points, I think it was actually, a considerable margin. It really just ensured that he became the nominee because there was backlash against it. People said, this looks like persecution to me. I don't support persecution. Ergo, I'm going to support Donald Trump. People like a good rebel, and Trump is cast off effectively now as the rebel. I think that the Uniparty right now is really nervous, and looking to SCOTUS and their particular decision, it was the right decision to make, and they worded it properly. I was glad that they limited it somewhat, because what you don't want to do is give a president or former president the ability to do literally anything, even in an unofficial capacity, and you can't do anything about it. Effectively, you'd be minting a series of emperors at that point. Oh, the president refused to leave office and sought a third term, and nobody could stop him? Oh, the president raped one of his staffers? Sorry, but I mean, we can't do anything about it. It's impossible. He is completely immune from all forms of criminal prosecution. The only thing you could do is boot him out of office. And then as a former president, I mean, God, if you boot him out of office and they can literally kill someone and not face prosecution, that becomes its own problem. And then they just buy a gun and lash out at people and say, well, I can walk down the street shooting people randomly. Then nobody will stop me. And you can throw them in an asylum, I suppose. That's about the only legal recourse you would end up having. So I'm glad that they constrain their decision properly. Merchant, though, I mean, you know, he severe TDS is an understatement with regards to some of the people involved with this case. And with the other cases, of course, Jack Smith and Letitia James and all these others. But he must be a real sad puppy right now because he didn't get his way. How sad. That's about all. Peace out.